apparently it's Rose McGowan's coming out against the woke as well. So this is we're very woke-tastic today.
Democrats control 2 branches of government and are attempting to control the third.
Oh my God. Control the third. Oh, you mean add seats to the Supreme Court. Okay.
By packing the Supreme Court with liberal justices.
Are they trying to do that, or did a small group present a bill to get 13 circuit judges on, 13 judges on there, one for every circuit, and that there's a commission going on to see if that's a good or a bad idea, which seems like a sensible balance of the idea there. Nah, they're trying to take over. It's a takeover. It's a takeover.
On top of that, the Fourth Estate, the media, continues to look the other way.
Do they? And by the way, how many of these donkey clip art things do they have? They pepper these things all over Tucker's show. You remember when we watched his clips? They use those, they hang them like ornaments everywhere.
And now, my next guest says she is fed up with the politics of it all.
Thank God. All right, good. So, because she's busy, she's got a new movie coming out with John Voight where she plays Patty Davis.
Joining me now with her first Fox News appearance is one of my heroes,
DJ Rose McGowan.
Rose McGowan, former actress, best-selling.
Former? Ouch! That didn't land well. Former.
Selling author, change maker, and one of time.
Yeah, did you see her like? Did you just say former actress? I'm never gonna work again. What?
Magazine's Persons of the Year. May I say, Rose, that you are also my Person of the Year, if not for several years. Having been in several years, I have no doubt moving forward. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Yes, and you've been sitting in our soundproof room. You haven't heard any of the conversation leading up to now, and we look forward to your answers. Now, remember, if you get 4 out of the 5 questions, you have a shot at the car.
Thank you so much for having me, Tammy.
You know, you are known by many people based on how the media has chosen to portray you.
Are you? She's a member of the media. She's an actress. She's put forth an image and been very outspoken. She speaks on her own behalf a lot.
It's in snippets. It's in blocks. We know that your life has been unique. You've had important experiences that you've taken action on, but not a lot of people.
Yeah, most people don't. I mean, that wouldn't describe anyone's life.
I've heard directly from you about why that's important, what you're doing now. You're an entrepreneur. You're a businesswoman. We're going to talk about that soon. But talk to everyone here who may, for the first time, may be seeing you directly after hearing your name for so long, having done such a great job in standing up for your rights, your dignity, and the dignity of women everywhere. Why did you do that?
Why did you do that and then come on Fox?
And what has it meant to the quality of your life? And why is it so important for everyone to understand?
Yeah.
Well, as some of you know, as some of you don't know, if you.
I don't know. Some of my chat. Do you guys know? You guys know, right? Do we know? I don't know.
You've heard my name or read anything.
Oh, it's Tammy Bruce. Thanks, Can't Stop Lying. Any relation to Robert the syphilitic leader of Scotland and the thing? That's William Wallace.
I mean, in the media, I grew up in a cult. And
okay. I had no idea you were a Scientologist, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nichiren Shoshu Buddhist.
And it was a very famous cult.
Oh, let's see. What's the most famous cult? Gosh, she was a pineapple farmer, a Jim Jones thing?
Called Children of God. And it gave...
Oh, she really was. Children of God. She was a member of Children of God.
Me a superpower.
You what?
It was a very famous cult called Children of God, and it gave me a superpower. It gave me the ability to see the control and the propaganda machine, especially in the U.S., for what it is and how it harms people and how the left can harm people just as much as the right if they go very, very deep into it and ignore.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to eat babies and stuff and sacrifice them to, Baal or something like that, obviously that would be over the end. It could also be that growing up in a cult, you have been taught to believe that anybody you see as the other is meant to be vilified vehemently, and that you view people through a lens of extremity. That could also be your superpower.
all other aspects of kind of reality in a way, and
Oh boy.
that you're serving a master that might not be serving you. And I
Obviously.
always say I come in peace. I am not here to make people feel bad about their political choices, but I am here to say
You are bad for your political choices.
that you might be in a cult too if you
Oh, all right. I don't know. Do you feel...
don't know the signs. And I do believe Democrats most especially are in a deep cult that they really don't
Uh-oh.
and know about and aren't really aware of. And I leave the Republicans alone more because I do respect people more that are like, this is what we are, this is what we're about, this is what we're against. Whereas
So like Black Lives Matter saying that Black Lives Matter and marching for Black Lives Matter causes and fighting for racial justice and like is that some sort of subversive thing then? I guess.
as I find that the Democrats are really pretty much almost against all the same things. They're against changing the world for the better. And
We're against changing the world for the better. What? Really? Really? So, let's see. Here's what you'd have to believe. To believe that, you'd have to believe the Paris Accord is designed to make the world worse. That it would be better if we used rampant fossil fuels forever. You'd have to believe that school lunch programs, universal pre-K, I guess paid family leave, those kind of things are all, it would be better if we did not have those things. That racial equity and trying to move towards that is actually a mistake, and you should not move towards those things. That things like gay marriage and women's rights and the ERA and those kind of things would make the world worse. These are what you have to believe if you're gonna say that we're against making the world better, because you have to define what you mean by better. And if the rest of us as Democrats are defining what we want to do, there's a platform, there's things we vote for, there's things the candidates have run for, there's things that we're trying to get through. Never mind the activist class on either side. If you're just saying, she's not saying lefties, she's not saying Antifa, she's not saying, radicals in the street. She's saying Democrats. People who have participated in a political party that has a distinct goal going forward, that have talked about that goal, have openly addressed it, have presented bills to the floor, put them through committee, had them voted on. That's what she's talking about. She's not saying radical lefties are da-da-da-da-da. They want to destroy the world and they're in a cult. She's saying Democrats. Just to clarify. So, understand that everything in the Democratic platform, let's just, if I may, 1 second. Let's see. Democratic priorities. Let's just see what the Democrats, let's see. Majorityleader.gov. So, all right. So here's what Rose McGowan thinks means that Democrats are against making the world better. Okay. The National Apprenticeship Act. This bill will provide nearly 1 million new apprenticeship opportunities, saving taxpayers by having to spend less on unemployment programs, and update the original National Apprenticeship Act to meet the 21st century standards. The Equality Act was passed to unanimous support in the House. The Equality Act would ensure LGBTQ Americans are guaranteed the full protections of federal civil rights laws and extends anti-discrimination protections to LGBTQ Americans with regard to employment, education, access to credit, jury service, federal funding, housing, and public housing. 72% of Americans support that, by the way. So 72% of Americans don't want to make the world a better place, according to Rose McGowan. Protecting America's Wilderness and Public Lands Act. This is a priority for Democrats, and according to Rose McGowan, this would make the world worse. H.R. 1. The Voting Rights Act, the reinstating of the Voting Rights Act, essentially, and the guarantee of the access to voting to every American. That's, according to Rose McGowan, Democrats are in a cult who are dreaming up this part of it, and they want to, this is them trying to make the world worse. They do not want to make the world better, and therefore they are presenting things like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which would address racial bias in policing, ensure accountability of police brutality and misconduct, work to change the culture of law enforcement to promote better relationships with the communities they serve. 3 in 4 voters back a ban on racial profiling and chokeholds. 55% to 58% of Republicans, respectively. Let's see, what else? The American Rescue Plan, which of course is incredibly popular. 77% of all voters and 59% of Republicans back this. Apparently, the American Rescue Plan, according to Rose McGowan, is Democrats want to make the world worse by passing it. Protecting the right to organize, the PRO Act. So creating room for unions. They want to make the world worse. Legislation to address gun violence, because the world is better, according to Rose McGowan, if guns are dumped onto the street and you have access to any of them, and there's legislative loopholes around gun shows, and that people don't have to register, and if people stockpile ammunition and shit like that, it's none of our goddamn business. Removing the arbitrary deadline for ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment, so they can keep working on it to ratify it until it's ratified, till the states all agree, instead of just making a date on it that says if you don't ratify it by this date, it's never going to be ratified, just like the world doesn't change. Reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. I can see why Rose McGowan, a leader in the Me Too movement, would be on Fox News shitting on Democrats who just elected and promoted Joe Biden to president, the original author of the Violence Against Women Act, and is working to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act, which was allowed to lapse by Republicans under Donald Trump. Rose, I can understand why you, of all people, would think that this is Democrats trying to make sure that the world isn't better, right? The Dream and Promise Act. Oh, yes, protecting dreamers and giving them a pathway to citizenship. The Farm Workforce Modernization Act. Ugh. I mean, if you want to destroy the world, it's to guarantee protections for farm workers. I mean, I can understand why. I mean, you must be just overwhelmed by the monstrous acts of the Democratic Party. And
they're for keeping a system in place that is for so few people and benefits so few, but they masquerade as the helpers. We would do this. The world would be perfect if only those Republicans would get out of the way. Well,
yeah. The vast 59% of Republicans support the vast majority of things the Democrats are trying to pass, and yet 0 Republicans are voting for these things in the House and Senate. 0, not 35%, not 25%, not 50, just shy of the 54, 59%. None of them. They are not representing the majority wishes of their own voters, much less the fact that they come from a constituency where they may have won their election 51 to 48, 49, depending on if there's an independent or someone else running. And they won 51%, and then so they won. They just barely won, split the district. And half of their voters actually support what the other side who voted against them would like to see done in Congress, but they're doing none of it.
Okay, you've got control, so now what?
They're doing it. Now the Infrastructure Act and raising taxes to 28%. Not back to 35 where they were in 2016, but to 28%. That's what they're fucking doing.
What are you going to do to make the world better?
They have a list of shit on their website. Go fucking read it before you go on Fox News and pretend they're the problem.
You see, it comes down to an issue of betrayal, really, because neither one of us are Republicans, right? I mean, we are the...
Yes, you are. Bullshit. Bullshit. You're Republicans. Of course you're Republicans. What makes you a fucking Democrat in this situation? She's taking a giant shit on them. You work for Fox. Both of you, like if she voted at all, the host definitely voted for Trump.
The women that were supposed to be the beneficiaries of all of these programs and promises of the Democrats. And here we are in a world where Republicans have been demonized. And yet, I identify as a conservative.
Right. Yeah, you're not a Democrat.
It does irritate certain people, but it really is about...
Why would it irritate certain people? You wouldn't be on Fox. You wouldn't have a fucking job at that place if you didn't identify as a conservative. It's an echo chamber.
Freedom.
That's why she's wearing headphones.
It's about personal freedom, about living lives that best suit us, and that's what you're doing as
You mean like being pro-choice, for example?
well. When it comes to the choices, look, a great actress, you're a writer.
Not anymore. You ex-actress. You said so earlier.
You are a businesswoman.
She's going to be playing John Voight in a one-man show.
You have a new beloved. You actually have time for a relationship. And you're happy. You're becoming at least happier, considering the nature of what you experience.
Yeah, nothing makes you happier than, I guess being a contrarian, essentially. This is what we're doing. So she's against Trump and everything about him until he leaves office. Now she's against whoever else is in charge because sort of his baseline crayons and hammer, anti-authoritarian, the system bullshit is way more interesting.
Experienced from Hollywood. Is that something you regularly struggle with when it comes to being yourself and embracing who it is you're becoming and what's important about that?
Who are you becoming? Is she gonna... All right.
I'm embracing in my life right now really just almost healing in a way, not just for me,
Almost,
but for so many others. During
it's. I think that's good. It's extremely healthy to embrace the healing of others. That doesn't sound codependent at all.
the Me Too media period, it was just triggers for so many women and men alike. Everybody really, and it was a
The Me Too period.
painful period for very many people, as it was for me.
Sure.
And my persecution, and awakening from being a Democrat was so much about what I do and what I say now, and so much about realizing how
That Me Too is over and that it was always bullshit. Is that where we are? Yikes!
hardcore of a cult it is. And
It's
how
interesting.
much
It's the ability
it does to women and the people it says it's going to help. But then why haven't they achieved anything?
They haven't achieved anything. Why is this stuff achieved as hold on. Let's see. Let's just shrink this down a little, shall we? Here's one of the things that Democrats might point to that Republicans have been actively campaigning against for 40 years, if not 60. And the only reason they didn't campaign against it before that is because they didn't have to. Was, in fact, the number of women working full-time year-round with a bachelor's degree is almost equal to men. And women are more likely to have a bachelor's degree than men among full-time year-round workers. College degree widens gender earnings gap. U.S. women with college degree, here you go, could soon be the majority of college-educated U.S. workers. More women are getting degrees than men. More women, and with a college degree, you earn more. So, is it there yet? No. Is it on its way? Yeah. And you know why it's on its way? And they're already leapfrogging over the men? You know why? Because of the actions of Democrats. What a lunatic.
Well, see, that's
And by the way, the Violence Against Women Act that Joe Biden passed in the 90s and then Trump allowed to lapse because he was too busy grabbing women between their legs without asking permission. And now the Democrats would like to reauthorize that to protect domestic violence victims. And fuck you.
That's it. And then we're also tied to this idea of what could happen, afraid of what we would say or not say.
Oh, okay. It's just political correctness. See, the problem with Democrats is, you know, in your search for women's rights, you can't be racist. And that's just a bummer.
But without being able to be true to ourselves, even after the feminist movement, still trying to conform. And that's kind of the...
With normal society? What do you mean? You're on Fox.
The rub here is this expectation that a woman like you is better off if you conform. But that is the...
Conform to what? She's an actress. Being an actor, being a performer is a nonconformist act by its very nature.
The opposite of your creativity. It's
She's conforming to conservative values now. And again, she hasn't stated, and neither has the other one, neither one of them has told us. They've told us being a Democrat's a cult and all that kind of stuff. She's given no description of what that means. This is the through line. This is the thread in this bullshit that we hear all the time. When Greg Kelly goes, the left does blah, 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 I want to hear what you're talking about. And I want to hear what your answer to that is specifically.
the opposite of what would fuel what makes the world interesting to you. For the bit of time that we have left.
Yeah, wrap it up, because so far, you know, I know you've got a DJ gig in a couple of minutes, or you're gaming on Twitch playing Animal Crossing.
What advice
It's a career.
would you give the young women listening, of course, but it also goes to whatever age we are, with what you've gone through and how each day takes something new, you've got to adapt all the time. What advice in this new age, as we're trying to come together and unite on the things that bring us together, what would you say to every woman watching?
Yeah, and guys, don't be afraid. You can listen too.
I would say that
Are you going to address the census crap that happened where Texas, Florida gained electoral votes, New York and Pennsylvania lost votes? At some point, yes.
every woman and man or anybody watching, that freedom does come at a price.
That's the best advice she's ever given. Let's give that a listen again.
Anybody watching, that freedom does come at a price.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think she could do it. I didn't think she could wrap it up so tightly and go, oh, I get it. That's what you mean.
Anybody watching, that freedom does come at a price. And your personal freedom comes at the price of you realizing how you're being controlled and where it's coming from, and separate. I would make a list, your belief system, and figure out what your belief system, what part of it is organic to you and what part has been implanted either by Hollywood or the media or your leaders.
Great.
Hold up your list, both of you. What values do you actually fucking have? Have any of us seen their values other than the labels that they've attached to them? Me, conservative, good; them, Democrat, bad. That's the only values we've seen, is the us and them version of things, which is not a value, it's just a descriptive.
Great idea.
What part of it is truly yours? What's organic to you? And see what's the polyester and pull it out of your fabric. We have to
See what's the polyester and pull it out of your fabric. That's chapter 3.
examine what we believe and why. I'm going to get a lot of hate for being on Fox News. That's just a fact. I've gotten
No. I don't hate that you were on Fox News. I mean, Pete Buttigieg has been on Fox News. It's that you went over there to clamor and kiss ass, and you didn't even fucking say anything. What are you? What values are you talking about? All you've done is try to pat yourself on the back for being contrarian, insist that the Democrats are in a cult without any example why. And why is that? Why won't she say what the cult believes? Because the minute she says that part, she gets outed as either a racist or a sexist or a transphobe or an anti-LGBT activist or some shit. She knows that whatever she says will be horrifying, not just to Democrats, but the vast majority of people. And they go, oh, wait a minute. That's what you think makes you a conservative, is because you believe that those people are wrong to have those concerns, and you're just writing them off because you can afford to?
People, on the left yelling at me, like, you go up against Biden, you go up against the Clintons, you go up. I'm like, yes, but all of these people the Clintons have had a direct hand in helping one of my perpetrators, who was one of the most powerful Democratic donors there was, and also their entree into the Hollywood world. And I've been persecuted by them, and I find that I had to even look through what had been implanted in me. So
what the fuck does that have to do with Biden? The dude wrote the Violence Against Women Act.
I would say look at your own belief systems and get free. You can still believe in whatever party you want to believe in.
No, you can't, because it's a cult. We've already established that.
But not to the limit where it makes it so you cannot have a human conversation with every other person.
Well, we don't have that problem. That's a problem you overlay onto things by insisting that Democrats, which is a broad group of human beings, are all like Marxist Antifa activists who will not hear a counter argument. And then you paint us into that corner in a descriptive, and then go, you guys aren't even capable of even talking about this. What are you talking about? I'll have a conversation with you about any topic you want and argue my point and win.
Doesn't mean...
Because I'm a friggin' genius. And I stand by what I say.
Even your politics change. It means that you become more free within that framework. Rose, I know that as people were to follow you on social media, they'll get an example of how to do this. Where can people find your work these days?
I'm on Parler, and I've just got a brand new account on Flank.
At Rose McGowan on Twitter, where I am shadow banned and suppressed.
No, she isn't. Rose McGowan is not shadow banned and suppressed on Twitter. Bullshit. I call bullshit.
Instagram, at Rose McGowan. Instagram's kind of my softer side. Twitter, I go hard, but, they suppressed me, and so does Facebook and everybody else. It's just because I go up against the sacred cows.
That's
You're
right.
not supposed to...
What sacred cows? What have you said so far? That you have a problem with the Clintons because they work with Weinstein because he raised a lot of money for Democrats at the time. And had they all known apparently at that time that he was an egregious rapist, instead of like, hey, occasionally knock boots with some celebrity actresses because they like me because they've got power, and they've that kind of conversation, which is bullshit, but might be the mask he wore in public. And some people might have bought it. Some people might have believed it or didn't believe it, and were like, well, I don't deal with him very often, so ugh. But beyond that, you still haven't explained why Democrats are now in a cult because Biden is the president. Where was that shit? The Clintons haven't been in power for 10 years.
To go up against the New York Times. You're not supposed to go up against the propagandists.
That's
right. Well, then well, obviously not on Fox. That would be rude.
Right.
And I think if someone is evil, they're evil. And they
Right. And I think there's reason to believe the two of you are edging on that. I'm kidding. Evil has some level of skill, I think.
should call them out, whether it's right or left or somewhere in the middle, because they are the ones keeping us apart. The propaganda machine.
Well, you're not calling out right and left and somewhere in the middle. You only give a shit about right-wingers, I think, in the case of Trump, because he was friends with Weinstein as well, and has 27 credible sexual assault things, and you were charges against him, and he was braggadocious about it, essentially.
In conjunction with whatever party is determined to have control over our freedom. Right. And they say America is the land of the free. Well, we have to fight for it.
Then what does that mean? The fuck does fight for your freedom mean? Honest to God. What? Fight Twitter because you're being shadow banned? Because you were posting anti-vaxxer stuff or something? Or shitting on other Me Too activists because you've decided you're done? Where honest to God, all right. The other day, some of you might have, let's see, do I show this to you guys? I think I should. I think this is a little off, into the deep reads. And some of you may know or may not know that I worked with Marianne Williamson for years, back in the early 90s. And she posted something a bit ago. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. So she posted this. She posted, every time a politician says they will go to Washington and fight for you, we should ask ourselves why it should be such a fight for every American to have a fair shot at a decent life. Okay, that's not what that means at all when they go, I'm going to fight for you. Because a good portion of them aren't fighting for every American to have a decent life. Conservatives are fighting for conservative values, and liberal activists and progressive activists are fighting for the way of life that they see as best fit. The decent life is a perspective, right? So none of them are saying they have to like they all join in some sort of proto-union, fight for the proletariat bullshit. And my response to it was, or maybe the problem is the word fight, and why it's used so arbitrarily and performatively in a democracy. Habitually using violent rhetoric in regard to civil governance might just be counterproductive clowning. After watching that fight and we got a fight video that they cut together at the RNC, and then watching the Republicans go right back to using it themselves, and, watching Don Jr. go, guys, the fight is on, all that horse shit, that maybe fighting is a shit metaphor for democratic governance when we're all trying to figure it out. And maybe the skill of a politician or the skill of an activist, and what separates the good ones from the bad ones, is the ability to convey your value system and your plan for implementing that value system and dragging as many people along and into the light as possible who either may initially disagree with you but need convincing, or people that do support you and need to feel like they're actually having someone work on their behalf. That in the middle of that what makes a good politician and a good activist is that you don't go to these knee-jerk bullshit phrases like, I'm gonna fight for you, like Cenk fucking Uyghur and that bullshit campaign he did, basically with the only purpose of which was to deny a Democratic woman a House seat. Nice work, dickhead. And all he said was, we gotta fight, I'm gonna fight, he fight, and fight. You're like, dude, you write bills, you discuss it in committee, you have to outsmart people. It isn't fisticuffs. It's chess. It's, and at the baseline, it's backgammon. You get a roll, you decide, okay, what's the best thing I can do with this roll of the dice, right? That's what it actually is. And so that, like, and then, like, after that, she asked me what I meant. She kind of, like, I think she was being mildly sarcastic, knowing Marianne. Yeah, when I was campaigning, I would always say, I don't want to go to Washington and fight for you. I want to go to Washington and create a better world with you. That's not actually true. She said it several times. She's going to fight Donald Trump with love, which you can't fight someone with love. You can I was going to say oppose, but that doesn't even work as a language. You can contrast hate with love and overwhelm it by the force of its existence, not by the force of its will or action, right? And I said, my response was, it gets used most by people who've never been in an actual fight and tend to outsource their emergencies. It's a tired metaphor that reeks of cowardice. I'm fucking sick of it. It's boring. It's how do you fight with love? Does she have an STD? That's right. So this whole idea of like, we got to fight for the fight, and we're going to fight and fight and fight. Shut the fuck up with the fight nonsense. Seriously. Even like fight back and those languages, or people lifting their fist in the air, because the fist in the air at the Olympics was amazing and an amazing symbol. But like, if your example of the power of your movement is the fist, then essentially you're just abdicating the mind in that circumstance and democracy in and of itself. You are seeking authoritarianism. You're just seeking to win through brute force or the concept of brute force or the overwhelming, like we will reshape the majority out of fear, and then the majority, because they're afraid to not be part of the majority, will overwhelm the minority that we're fighting against or that we have just made. And therefore we will create a world where there are minority rights by creating new minorities and pulling the rug out from under them. It's super fucking weird. It just doesn't work. And I wish people had the brains to actually recognize that. It makes me nuts. Mom Ruza, time to begin the Midwestern goodbye. Oh, thanks. Yes, I have rehearsals. I got to leave for rehearsal. I got 20 minutes. I'm okay. We're all right in time. I started a little later. We're okay.
I'm not conservative in my beliefs.
Yeah, you are. Prove me otherwise. You're fighting against Biden in the middle of him trying to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act, and the American Rescue Plan apparently is indicative of him trying to destroy the country and not make the world better. And then the infrastructure plan he's putting forward is apparently the destruction of Earth. The fuck are both of you talking about? Yes, you're a conservative. What evidence do I have to the contrary?
I believe in different personal freedoms, and maybe people watching this.
Well, then you can just be a libertarian laissez-faire who doesn't give a shit. That's not being a Democrat or a liberal.
But I can still be your friend.
How? I'm in a cult. I'm not allowed to have friends.
Still be your ally, and I can still want the best for you.
Bravo.
But my idea about what the best is for you to understand that wanting the H.R. 1 and the Voting Rights Act and the American Rescue Plan and an infrastructure bill and universal pre-K and a single-payer health plan available to all Americans that they can fucking buy into, that means you're in a cult, and I want the best for you, so stop. What are you talking about? Again, what is it? There is nothing said here. I was expecting, even, John Voight's bullshit about Trump did everything he said he was going to do, which is, and then like, yeah, name it. It brought back Christmas. Like, shut up.
This is the heroism that I was talking about.
Yeah, it takes such a hero to what? Go where the money is? What? I mean, honestly, is this just how you get in a Daily Wire movie? What are you talking about?
It's beautiful. Thank you, Rose. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And we'll talk soon. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Good luck, too.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.
Yikes. I did not give you permission to talk in my piece. Sean Hannity, ick.